Hello everyone. Thanks for joining me in the De Youngsters studio for this week's guided art activity. My name's Hannah and I'm a teaching artist at the De Young. Today's project is in celebration of Frida Kahlo and Bouquets to Art. Frida Kahlo was from Mexico and is one of the 20th century's most acclaimed artists. She suffered terrible injuries in an accident and spent much of her adult life in chronic pain. She often used her art as a way of expressing her personal story. We can see her in this self-portrait that she painted in 1940 and dedicated to her doctor. Many of her paintings were filled with colourful symbols and costumes, including flowers and ribbons. Let me show you what we're making today. This project gives us the chance to experiment with colour and materials to create a floral crown similar to many seen in some of Kahlo's portraits. If you aren't really into crowns and you want another way of wearing your flower, I can show you an alternative later on. So let's look at some of the materials that we'll need. I'm going to show you how to make the flowers with tissue paper. I have 3 different colours here and the rectangles are cut into 15 by 5 inch sizes. We'll make 3 flowers out of this set. If you don't have tissue paper, you could try experimenting with a couple of paper napkins or 2 sheets of paper towel. And I can show you a couple of different ways to adapt the project to work with those materials. We'll also need a pencil and a ruler, some pipe cleaners to attach the flowers. If you don't have pipe cleaners, you could try using these long twist ties, and I'll show you how to do that too. We'll also be using scissors. I have some floral wire here to make the crown, but any kind of wire will do. And I also have some of this floral tape, which is really just to neaten things up. So don't worry if you don't have any of that. So let's start by making the flowers and then I'll show you how to construct the crown later on. So I have my stack of 6 sheets of tissue paper. I've arranged them so that I have the 3 colours together. So I have 2 sheets of purple, 2 sheets of yellow and 2 sheets of pink. As I said, they're 15 inches long and 5 inches wide. And we're going to start by folding them along this long edge, accordion style. And we're going to fold about 1 inch along. You could mark with a pencil where the inch line is if you want to, or you could kind of just judge by eye. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'll do that last fold. So that ends up being 4 folds. Now, with a pencil and using your ruler, go ahead and measure 5 inches here and here. So that gives us 3 sections. We'll be making 3 flowers from those. As you can see, I've actually marked on the paper on the table with some black Sharpie so that you can see a bit more clearly. We're not going to cut just yet though. The next step is to fold the pipe cleaners in half, ready to help us construct the flowers. So I like to have the ends of the pipe cleaners meet and I pull with my finger and then just give a quick pinch and we have that in half. Let me show you on an accordion fold that I've already attached 2 pipe cleaners to. So now that I have my pipe cleaner ready to go, I'm going to slip that under there and I'm just going to judge by eye about halfway in that section. And I'll lift this up and I'm just going to do a couple of loose twists just to secure the pipe cleaner to it. You can see that I've alternated the position of the pipe cleaners. This is only really important if you're using more than 1 colour tissue paper because it allows in a variance of the top colour. Now that we've got the pipe cleaners attached, I can go ahead and cut the sections at that 5-inch mark. And I'll just scoop that out of the way for now. And the next step is to round off these corners so that they look a little bit more like the end of a petal. If you want to, you could draw that line in first with a pencil, or you could just do it by eye, just as I'm doing right now. You could always go in at the end once you've shaped your flower. If you see any hard edges, you could always trim them off. So this is the basis of the flower. The next step is to kind of create some shape and volume by separating and lifting the tissue paper layers. I find it easier to work on one half at a time rather than try and do everything all together. I have one here that I've already created volume on one side, and I've left this one flat so that I can show you how I did it. I'm going to go ahead and open that up like that. And the first thing I like to do is just to lift up the top layer, of pink. I'm just going to carefully go in and sort of tease that tissue paper apart and lift that up. And then I like to flip it over and do the bottom layer. So I'm going to carefully pull apart the purple. Don't try and pull it all the way at the beginning. As the layers loosen up, every layer will become easier to separate. So now I'm going to go back to the top and pick the second layer of pink up, like that. And come back down and do that second layer of purple. And each layer helps create a little bit more volume for the flower. And I'm left with those two center yellow layers. I'm just going to carefully tease them apart like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and just straighten out some of those layers to kind of scrunch and position the flower how I want it. You can spend a bit of time playing with that to get it how you like. So this flower has become mostly pink flower, look, because that was the top layer. I have two other flowers that I've already done, and you can see that I ended up with two pink and one purple flower. So that's how you make the flowers. Let me show you a couple of the adaptations if you're going to be using paper napkins or paper towel. So because these materials are thicker, I found when I was experimenting that creating that volume and shape of the flower is easier with fewer layers when we're using these thicker materials. So instead of using 6 layers, I'm just going to be using 5. And obviously I'm going to be using 5 by 5 inch squares to make one flower at a time because I couldn't get the same length of 15 inches with these materials. When I was using the paper napkin, I decided that I was going to use each of the 4 quarters of one napkin and then cut an extra quarter from a second napkin, and that would give me my 5 layers, and I'll go ahead and cut those into 5 by 5 squares too. The other thing that makes it a bit easier to shape with this thicker material is to have fewer folds. So with the tissue paper we had 4 folds. We're just going to do 3 with this thicker material, and let me show you how I did that. I'm just going to fold in half, and then I'm going to fold back that top layer to that centerfold, and I'm going to fold that underneath. So you can see there's just 3 folds in there. Now I thought I could show you what they look like when they're made. So this is the paper napkin, that looks pretty good, and this is the paper towel. And I also wanted to show you how you could use the twist ties if you don't have any pipe cleaners. So I have one accordion fold, I've already trimmed the edges, and I've used the twist tie to secure it, but it doesn't make a very long stem, which would make it hard to attach later on to the wire crown. So I realised if I took a second twist tie, I'm just going to lift this up to make a loop, and I can thread that second twist tie through, bring it up to the edge, and I'm just going to kind of twist this around, and there you see we end up with a longer stem. Of course, if you have paper towel, you could always add colour to it. My daughter helped me with this. She used watercolours and really enjoyed having fun working with the colours. She decorated all of the 5 sheets, let them dry overnight, and then she made this beautiful flower with the painted paper towel, and I think that turned out really pretty. So that is how we make the flowers. Now we're going to talk about constructing the crown. You're going to need some wire. You could measure this with a tape measure if you want to. I tend to kind of do a long arm's length of wire, so it's going to be longer than I need, but actually having an overlap is quite a good idea anyway, because then that makes the crown a little bit more sturdy. So I've got that kind of oval shape there and these 2 ends. So I'm just going to twist those loose ends around that crown shape like that, and I'll do the same with this end, wrapping around, and that just helps make that crown a little bit sturdier with that extra double thickness of wire. Let's take a look at how Frida Kahlo used to wear her flowers. We have this photo called Frida on Bench, taken in 1939 by Nicholas Murray, and she wears those flowers quite high on her head. So I was wanting to come up with a way of attaching our paper flowers so that the flowers would sit quite high. I've already attached 2 flowers to this crown here, and can you see I've allowed quite a lot of the stem to stay above the wire, so I haven't attached the flower sitting directly on the wire. I've allowed for that little bit of height there, and I'll show you how I did that with the center flower. I kind of think it's easier to attach the 2 outer flowers and then the central one, because then you know how high you want to make it. So I'm going to make it quite high off the wire, and to help me with that, I'm going to fold these pipe cleaners ends out like that, and it's just these ends that I will wrap around the wire, and this part will stay a tall stem that will give me quite a lot to play with when I'm wanting to arrange them on the crown. So I'll angle it towards you so that you can see. I'm going to wrap one end around first, and I'm just going to do my best to wrap around that wire like that, and then on this side I can move this other flower out of the way, and then I can always bend it back in like that. So that is pretty much how the flowers can sit, and don't forget you can bend them, have them at different angles. Go ahead and try it on and look in the mirror, and you can arrange them kind of how you want, like that. At the end, the last finishing touch is to wrap some floral tape around the wire and all the way around the pipe cleaner, just to kind of neaten everything up. And remember I was saying that if you didn't want to make a crown, I could show you an alternate way to wear your flower. Well, I have a single flower here that I've already wrapped the stem with some floral tape, and I also have a safety pin that I'm going to attach, and I'll use some floral tape and I can show you how this stuff works if you've never worked with it before. So it doesn't feel sticky like regular tape, because the stickiness is kind of embedded in the tape itself, and it is activated when you stretch it. If you stretch it too much, it will break just like that. It doesn't matter if it breaks as you're wrapping, you can just keep going with what you've got left. So I'm going to start stretching and wrapping around the stem. And then I'm going to hold the safety pin in place, and I'll wrap around it like that, keeping that safety pin on the top, and I'll come below like that. I'm just going to tear that off and finish that end up like that. So now I have the pin. I might bend that flower forward so that it's facing out, and I can just go ahead and pin that like that. And that is an alternate way to wear your flower. I wonder what colour palette you'll choose for your floral crown. Maybe you could pick colours that match a favourite outfit. Perhaps you could arrange to make floral crowns with some friends, and then you could all meet up online wearing them and see each other's creations. We'd love to see what you make too. Tag us on any social platform with #DYoungsters, or email a photo to families@famsf.org. And remember, there's a new guided art activity every Friday. Thanks for joining me.